So now we're going to jump into lesson 3, which is actually one of the probably most misunderstood sections of Google AdWords. It's the bidding and budgeting section. Okay, so one thing that Google Ads is actually, it's an amazing product, but the one thing that you really need to understand as an advertiser, and this is not meant to degrade Google in any ways, but they really don't care about your experience with Google Ads, because Google was built on the simple fact of being able to provide the most relevant information to the consumer that they possibly can, which means that consumer experience is realistically, it's much more important than your value as your advertiser. As we know, they're a $40–50 billion a year company, and if the advertisers are gone, that's one thing. But if the consumer goes away, they're gone, right? So if they don't have the traffic there, nobody's going to pay for it. And that's where I want to kind of touch on the bidding and budgeting section to make sure you really understand the core components of how to, realistically manipulate the system and get better results, but also just how you understand even how your ads show up. Okay, so one of the things is the QA score. Okay, the quality score, this is what the user experience is. So just kind of, you can nickname this consumer experience rating. Okay, because that's really what it is. And it's between 1 and 10, and it's going to evaluate how relevant your ads, how specific your ads, how keyword driven they are, what your landing page activity is, the relevant experience on that. It's the entire consumer experience, which we'll break down in further modules when we get into the ads and building out the campaigns as well. But ultimately, the QA score is the consumer experience. Okay, and how you show up on Google as your ad rank. So one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is your ad rank is your bid times your QA score. Okay, so it's not even actually what you pay. So the ad rank is how you show up on Google, and the positions on Google are, you're going to have anywhere from 3 to 4 positions at the top with another 3 to 4 positions at the bottom. You used to have, back in the day, if you ever used to click on Google, you used to see the 3 or 4 positions on the top and then 10 on the side. Google's tried to slimline that as we've gone more mobile driven. So they've got the 3 at the top and the 4 at the bottom, and it'll kind of alternate where you'll have 4 at the top, maybe 3 at the bottom. But ultimately, those are determined by this core ranking. Okay, it's your bid times your QA score. So just to give you an example, so what it is let's say I'm going to bid $10, and your QA score, like I covered earlier, is between a 1 and 10. And let's say I'm doing really, really good and I'm providing a valuable experience for my consumer. My landing pages load really fast. The content is very relevant. It follows what I call the tree of relevance, right? Basically, when you click on whatever keyword you're showing up is reflected in the ad, and it's reflected on the landing page. Now, so we're going to just give you a 10 out of a 10. You're a rock star and you're doing awesome, okay? So that means your quality score, your ad rank, is going to be a 100, okay? Let's say your competitor, they're not doing so well. They have a bad landing page, doesn't load as fast. Well, they're also broke, right? So they're going to just bid $11. They're just going to bid a little bit more than you, right? But this is where you level the playing field by making sure your experience with your consumer is much more higher rate and higher level, right? So they get a quality score of only, we'll say 5, round numbers. Okay, that's 55, right? So when you're showing up the ad rank on the pages where it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, and then down at the below, with an ad rank score of 100, you're probably going to show up in this first position. With them 55, they're probably going to be in the 4th, right? But does that mean you're going to pay 10? No, we're going to throw one other caveat in here, okay? Let's say your other competitor down here, they got a bunch of money, okay? They're paying $15 is what their bid is. They're doing okay, so their quality score, we'll just do round numbers actually, they're doing really, really good, right? So 10 times 50, that's 150 is their quality score. So now, unfortunately, since your competitor came in, they're bidding more, they're doing pretty well as far as their quality score, right? They're going to show up in the first position now with an ad rank of 150. Now that pushes you down to the second position. Okay, now, are you going to get the click in the first position? Who knows? Maybe this consumer's a little bit, they like your ad text, they like your headline because you took our advice from Module 3 and you wrote a really good ad. All right, so you got the click. Does this mean I'm going to pay $11? How am I actually going to determine what I'm going to pay for this click? right, is determined based on who's bidding before me. So it's either a penny more or a penny less. Unfortunately, Google's in the game of making money, so they're going to pick the higher bid, and that's what you're going to base off of. So now in this particular scenario, like we laid out, right, we've got our first position right here, this guy, because he's got he's got his ad rank score of 150. We're doing pretty well, so we're in the second position. This guy falls in the third position, right? So he's in the third position. Now, obviously with our guy with our big money, right, he's paying $15. Our max bid is $10. So this is where the penny more or penny less comes in. I can't afford to get to the $15, and Google's not going to charge me $15 or anywhere close to that because I've set a max bid of $10. So what do they have to go back? They have to go back to the closest competitor, which was $11, right? He was $11, didn't really work, still out of line, right? So where's the next competitor where it's within our bidding section? Right, we're going to get down to, the fourth position, which this guy really, he was 9 times. He was doing pretty well. So it's 54. So since this guy is within our actual rank and we did get the click, what we're going to do is we're going to actually pay just $9.01 for us to get that click. Okay, in that scenario, because again, this is our closest competitor that's within our bidding range. So again, we've set a max bid of $10. We can't compete with either one of these guys, and we didn't allow Google to even set that, but we gamed the system, for lack of a better phrase, and we put out quality ads, we put out quality content. So what does Google have to do? It has to go to the closest competitor, which is $9, right? So that's where we get the 901, and when we get that click, that's what we're gonna pay. The next thing that you're covering, you're actually probably wondering, how we get the $10, $11, $12, those things. So that actually gets into your bidding. Okay, we have two different options. You're going to have your manual bidding, and then you have your automatic bidding. To clarify those, what you're looking at is your manual bidding is where you actually set the bids according to whatever you feel necessary. Within the automatic bids is what Google's actually going to determine of what's necessary. You have a little bit less control, but maybe if you're not as aware of what the particular market is, those kind of things, automatic bidding isn't terrible. But again, I'm more of like the control where I like to track everything and make sure that I have complete understanding and housing of where my revenue is, how it's being spent, and what my ROI is. So I typically choose the manual bidding section. And that's where we're going to actually get into setting our bids, okay? Whenever I set the $10 or this guy down here set 9 or 11, that's what the manual bidding process is. We give the system certain parameters to understand how much we want to bid on a particular keyword. You can set it at the keyword level, the campaign level, ad group level. There's several different levels which we'll cover throughout the entire course so you can understand where and when you want to bid and how you want to bid it. But ideally, just from a top level view, manual bidding is the ability for you to set exactly how much you want to pay. Okay? Now moving on to the next portion of bidding and budgeting, where I have a lot of my campaigns, and this is ultimately your goal of what you want to get all of your campaigns onto, is what we call CPA. Okay, that's cost per acquisition. It means you give Google the ability to determine how much it wants to bid for a particular click based on how much you're willing to pay for your product to actually sell. Okay, this isn't how much I'm going to pay for a click. This isn't how much I'm going to pay for an impression. This is how much I'm willing to pay for a sale. Okay, now again, in my case, a lot of times it's sale because I do a lot of product companies. I have a lot of product clients, those kind of things. But this may be how much I'm willing to pay for a form fill lead, or how much I'm willing to pay for a particular phone call. Right? It's whatever your goal is at the end of the day. That's what CPA is going to be based off of. Now, this is the next portion of it is what we call ROAS, and a little something different like return on ad spend, position-based bidding, impression share bidding. Those things are a little bit higher level. We're going to cover those further down in the course, but ultimately they all reflect back to, okay, I'm willing to pay this much for a particular action within the campaign. So I know we've covered a lot of stuff, and we've put even some examples up here that may seem a little bit confusing. In further lessons, I'm going to make sure to actually give you screen recordings and show you exactly how this is done and how these settings are manipulated. different ways that I use in order to even game the system and make sure that I get exactly the result that I want. And those are actually going to be screen recordings, so you have something to go back and reference and not just look at the whiteboard that I've been writing on. Now in the next lesson, I'm going to go more in depth into actually some performance metrics and how you're actually going to understand the performance of your campaign in order to make sure that not only are you increasing your conversions, but you're saving money in the process. You'll have additional resources and templates in order for you to track all of that. So let's move on to the next one right now so we can get you on to being successful.